Hello and welcome to today's live Q&A with Jen Smollett. She is a authenticity and women's leadership coach, and we're going to be answering some questions that you've sent me beforehand. Thank you so much to everybody that has submitted their questions. We're going to be talking all about authenticity and leadership in the workplace. And if you've got any questions as we're chatting, please pop them in the comments.
I'm really sorry.
That's all right. I'm moving there.
Okay, that hopefully won't happen again.
Oh, don't worry. Hopefully it's not the nursery or the school.
Melanie, can I pass you your phone? I'm live. It's just rang. Thanks. Nice bit of authenticity for you there.
Absolutely. Don't worry. Don't worry. I think a lot of us can relate. Don't worry. Brilliant. So actually, before we dive into the questions, if people it's the first time they are watching and us chatting, do you want to just give people a bit of an overview of who you are and what do you do?
Yes, sure. Hi, I'm Jen. I am a women's leadership coach, as you just mentioned, and I am extremely passionate about supporting women to be the best that they can be. And I believe that that is through building their authenticity and their resilience. And then with those two things comes the confidence in themselves and their abilities. And I believe if we work on those things, I think women can fly and be as successful as they possibly
can. I love it. Do you know what? I speak to you and I get chills. Yeah, I think it's so true. I love it. I love chatting to you. Okay, so the first question is, what does it mean to lead with authenticity? And why is it important in today's professional landscape?
So why is it important and what does it mean? So what does it mean to lead with authenticity? Leading with authenticity, I'm going to say what it doesn't mean first of all, and I think we've had this conversation before, but I think it's worth noting. Leading with authenticity doesn't mean letting it all hang out. It doesn't mean that you just, turn up however you are, this is, whatever, bring it all. It doesn't mean that. It means that you are consistent in a way, in all of your leadership decisions, in the way that you are with people, that you have a consistency about you that is authentic to who you truly are. So I always come back to values. And actually, if you think about your values and what matters most to you, and you have 5 of them, you can have more or less, but generally 5. If you use those 5 as your moral compass in all of your leadership decisions, then that will guide you through being authentic in your leadership. And it will just bring a consistency to you and what you do that's consistent with your inner self, as well as you're consistent with previous decisions that you've made before. Which leads me perfectly onto why that's important in this landscape, is because actually people need to trust the people that are leading them. And if you have a leader who isn't consistent or isn't authentic, then it's really hard to trust those people. And I think it's really interesting with authenticity in particular, because we're really perceptive as individuals and we might not be able to put our finger on it. But if somebody is being inauthentic, we feel it. It's like a feeling in our bones. We can feel it and we know. And it's just the same at work. If you're being inauthentic in your leadership, if you're trying to be somebody that you're not in your leadership, then people feel that. And that feeling means that people are less likely to trust you. Therefore, they're going to be less likely to want to follow your vision. They're going to be less inspired by you. They're going to be less likely to follow actually in your vision and your strategy and your dreams for where you're going in your organization. So it's vital. And then, of course, authenticity is linked with happiness. The more authentic we are as human beings, the happier we are, our higher levels of well-being. So that's in you as a leader, but then it's also the more people see your authenticity or feel your authenticity, it also allows them to be more authentic as well. And so if they're more authentic, then they also have that added impact of them having more happiness and a higher well-being. So a more engaged workforce for you, as well as a happier workforce as well, are the benefits. I mean, the benefits are endless.
The question I have is, I wonder if it's a little bit hard. I wonder if it's the hardest place to be authentic is the middle management, when you have no necessarily ownership over those big decisions that are made. I'm just thinking back to when I worked in corporate and I was sort of a middle manager, well, wasn't really, more junior manager, but still, I'd have decisions given to me, decisions that I didn't always necessarily agree with, but then had to get the buy-in of the team.
Yeah.
And then you are really being quite inauthentic. How do you manage that, do you think, for somebody?
I think that's an interesting question, because I think you can still do that in an authentic way. So, for example, if one of your values is compassion, just because you don't agree with the decision that's coming from higher above, actually you can still deliver that, but with compassion. So, for example, I don't know, a ridiculous thing like you've been told from higher up that you've got to get everyone back in the office.
Yeah.
And that's been the thing that you've been told. And actually you have been talking to Liz and you passionately believe that that is not the way to go. Actually, the authenticity piece that you can bring in to that would be to challenge upwards, of course, and to try to influence upwards as much as you possibly can. And then with compassion, deliver that to your team. And so, actually, you don't want to forward the email on everyone back in the office from Monday, for example. Yeah. If you're compassionate and you want to bring your compassion in, maybe you want to bring your authenticity in, you want to bring some generosity in, because that's another value of yours, then you may email out to your team and just say, look, the move of the organization is for people to get back into the office. Can we arrange a time to discuss how we can make this work, or how we can make this work in the best way possible, or how we can meet to discuss your unique needs within this landscape? So you've got to do it. Of course you have in that middle management. You've got to do the things that you're being asked to do. But you can challenge upwards, or maybe you find that difficult, but in as much as you can, because then that's authentic. You know that you've tried your best to do it upwards, whilst also maintaining your values in delivering the message lower down.
Yeah, brilliant. Sarah says, you can still be authentic as a middle manager as long as you are clear and concise with communication, and being transparent is key. I think so.
I agree. Thanks, Sarah.
Many female leaders, next question, suffer with self-doubt and stress. So what strategies would you recommend for managing these feelings and boosting confidence?
Yeah, so self-doubt, one of the key things that comes up for me in that, especially in the idea of middle management, when you were mentioning that before, and the idea of being authentic in middle management, is that actually a lot of what we think we're supposed to be as a leader becomes what we're trying to be. And especially in middle management, if you're new to management, or you're kind of working your way up in the role, you actually maybe don't have the management or leadership skills yet. Maybe you're working towards them. Maybe you haven't got that much experience of it. And at that point in your career, you potentially are working towards being a manager that you think that you're supposed to be. And for me, that's what I see as being the biggest thing to impact both stress and self-doubt. Stress, because actually on the back of the self-doubt, if you're not sure that you are able to be the leader or manager that you think you're supposed to be, or if there's some internal conflict between actually who you want to be as a leader and who you think you should be as a leader, then that is going to create some conflict within you and stress within you as well. So then you end up going into a cycle of trying to prove yourself. And of course, proving yourself means that you then take on more work, and that becomes more stressful. Yeah. So in answer to the question of that, actually, it's to get really clear on who you want to be as a manager. So ignoring the self-doubt, first of all, not ignoring it completely, but acknowledging it's there and actually thinking, well, who do I want to be? How do I want to leave work every day? And what do I want to feel proud of? Actually, if you can walk away and think, well, actually, I was compassionate in all of my communication today, then I can feel proud of that. Who do you want to be? And then when you figured out who it is that you want to be at work, then starting to raise your awareness of actually whether you are being that person at work, and trying to keep that as the main focus rather than all of the external messages about who you think you should be. Because of course, it's the external messages often that make us start to doubt who we are. And of course, we've talked before about unconscious bias, but there's a lot of biases against women that will factor into making you feel some of those elements of self-doubt. So some of the self-doubt is being given to you from outside of you as well. So we've got to strengthen the inner you to be able to then resist the external impact that is going to affect your self-doubt and of course your stress levels.
Absolutely brilliant advice. Could you share some practical ways for how people can foster resilience in the face of adversity or setbacks? So I guess, you know, if you don't get that promotion, or, you know, if the role's not going well, anything like that. So how can you, you know, foster that resilience?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I always talk about it as an elastic band, resilience as an elastic band. And actually, if we think about our emotional resilience, so think about it being in our brain, and it's an emotional muscle, for example. It isn't, but we're using this as an analogy.
Yeah.
If we've got an elastic band, every single time something stressful happens, that elastic band stretches. And actually, if you just allow it to keep stretching, it gets to a point where one thing might happen, and that elastic band is going to snap, or it's going to kind of go quite flaccid and not be able to do anything with it, or it might ping off and hit someone in the face, which is obviously often what my experience is. Yeah. And actually what we need to think about is we need our elastic band to be the most in the best position possible, so that when we do have those setbacks, we're not at the point where it snaps or pings off, that actually we are able to have the elastic band stretch and then release, and then stretch and then release. So we need to do the things for ourselves that allow us to build the elasticity of our elastic band. So that might be that we put ourselves in challenging situations so that we can stretch it. But then it also means we need to give ourselves an opportunity for that elastic band to relax in between. So, for example, if you've gone for a promotion and you don't get the promotion, obviously that's really, really tough. And maybe what you need with your to release your elastic band at that point is a big old cry, first and foremost. And then maybe you need to go out for a big, massive walk, or maybe you need to talk it through with somebody. But actually what you need is to give yourself the time to allow that elastic band to release. And then, of course, before that happens, it's making sure that your elastic band isn't always here. You know, it's actually being proactive all of the time in making sure that our elastic band isn't at the most stretched it can be, because that is when we can't deal with setbacks. We need it to be somewhere in the middle here. You know, we don't want it flaccid doing nothing. Of course we don't, because then life isn't exciting and, you know, we're not growing and developing and we're not enjoying what we're doing. But we just need it to be somewhere in the middle, so that actually if something comes along, we've got some stretch. We can go and stretch to the max without it snapping or pinging off or going flaccid, actually, and kind of reaching burnout.
That's really good advice. I mean, I guess I know some people don't like the word, but it's all about balance then, isn't it? It's all about, you know, you don't want to be working, I'm guessing, making sure you're not taking maybe too much on, that you're then like that, you know, it's allowing that balance between work and life and everything else.
I think resilience is about building awareness as well, in terms of where we're at. So I know for me, before, I've kind of gone way over what I'm able to do, and then gone, oh gosh, like now it's like crisis point and I'm having to like cut things left, right and center and like really pull back. And now with awareness, I'm kind of starting to get to a point where I'm like, do you know what, that's stretching me in a way that doesn't feel good. I'm going to have to let go of that, or I'm going to change that, or I'm going to adapt that, or I'm going to factor in more relaxation so that I can do that. And actually it's a balance, but it's a bit of a game as well. And it's a constant game and a constant need to be aware of where we're at, what we're feeling. And that's an awareness of our whole body as well. You know, I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but about, when was it? It was in 2020, and I started working with a therapist. I did cognitive analytical therapy for myself. And I remember in one of the sessions, I was saying about how I was feeling, and I was feeling quite overwhelmed with things, and motherhood actually. And she said to me, she said, where do you feel it in your body? And honestly, I was like, it's an emotion that's in my head. Like, I don't feel it anywhere in my body. Like, what a ridiculous thing to say. And then actually, as the sessions went on and she would continue to ask me, I started to realize that actually there's so much feeling in my body. And I'm doing different kinds of therapy at the minute now. I'm doing EMDR therapy, and actually it's so much of my emotions are in my body, and it really I can feel it all. And now I know where different feelings are. Like there's a bit of stress and too much pressure that comes in the back of my my shoulders. There's like a feeling of dread. I mean, I think most people's are in my tummy. You know, there's an anxiety feeling that I get in my chest. Like there's so many different feelings that are in so many different parts of our body. And actually, again, part of resilience is having that emotional awareness, is recognizing where we are, where our body is at, because that will tell us where our mind is at as well, and tuning into ourselves and just understanding and listening to ourselves, our body, as well as our minds.
Brilliant. Do you know, I love that. It's really true. And my husband always says, he goes, you underestimate how long things take. But actually, I think I'm getting better at that. Like, you know, actually saying no to things, knowing I have to leave, you know, the office, my home office, to pick up the kid. You know, so I only have so much hours in the day. And it's actually, you know, I think the most powerful thing actually is learning to say no to things.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Next question. Can you recommend any resources, like books, podcasts, etc., that would be helpful for people looking to strengthen their leadership?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've actually got 2 books out, but then as soon as you asked that question, I was like, obviously, the person that I always go back to is Brené Brown. If you have not heard of Brené Brown,
I've heard of her, but you know what? I've never seen any of her stuff.
Oh my goodness me, that woman is amazing. I literally love her. She's the person, you know, whenever, you know, the questions like, who would you want to meet? Like the one person you could like go to a dinner party with or whatever. She is my person. I think she's absolutely amazing. And the reason she's amazing is because she walks the walk.
Yeah.
Talk the talk. Walks the walk. She's real. She's a real person. So she talks about authenticity and vulnerability. So she has a book called Dare to Lead, which is fantastic. I would highly recommend it. She has a podcast, which I think she stopped recording, but the past episodes are all.
Are they the ones on Spotify? Is it her that fell out with Spotify? Or...
She did. Yeah, she did. So I probably should check whether or not they're still available on there. I think they are. I think the back catalogue are available.
I feel they were owned by Spotify, and that was where the row happened.
Yeah, something like that. But even I think that's probably the thing about her as well. Like she put things about that online, but she was still authentic, and she was still vulnerable, and she was still like curious, and all of the things that she talks about and teaches, she was those things in the way that she presented herself about that. And about politics as well. She'll share things about politics as well, and she does that online. But as a resource, as something to read, I would say her book, Dare to Lead. She also has a podcast, a TED Talk, which was called The Power of Vulnerability. It's about 45 minutes long, and it's one of the first ones that she did. And that's not specifically leadership, actually, but that's kind of about being vulnerable. But I personally believe that vulnerability is a skill that is vital in leadership. But she has that TED Talk. So basically anything by Brené Brown is going to change your life for the better, as well as your leadership for the better. And then the 2 books that I have are Insight. Excuse my nails, I'm realizing that. Oops.
Oh, that's right. Who wrote that? We can't.
Insight is Dr. Tasha Eurich.
All right, okay.
And that's basically all about strengthening and building your own self-awareness, which I've kind of mentioned a few times. But self-awareness is one of the key things to being able to be the most authentic and best leader that you can be. You need to be aware, you know, and have that self-awareness. So that book. And then Suzanne David she's a good friend of Brené Brown's, actually, and their work crosses over quite a lot. But she wrote this book, Emotional Agility.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
And again, it's life and work. It's leadership, but actually it's one of those books that will impact your parenting. It will impact your friendships. It will impact the way you relate to yourself. And that's brilliant. It's actually quite a few years old now, but it's an amazing book. So yeah, that would be my.
They're good starting points for somebody. Yeah. How do you envision the future of leadership? And what trends or changes do you see coming down the line?
Oh, Do you know, I'm not very good at future or having I don't have the confidence.
I wonder what
expertise.
I mean, in AI, I suppose, is obviously going to have a huge impact. Hi, Karina. Thanks for watching.
The what's going to have a huge impact? Sorry.
AI.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think it's going to become less personal? I don't know.
I think.
Or is that connection going to become even more important?
Potentially, yeah. And I think in leadership, I think the key thing of leadership is your people skills. Yeah. And actually nothing can replace that. You know, AI can't replace that at all. And actually the key thing I've just said it, so I'm just repeating myself, but I think the key thing is personal relationships, the way you connect with people, the way you show that you care about people, the way that you inspire and motivate people. They're things that can't be replaced, I don't believe, personally. I hope that the future of leadership is authenticity. There is lots of work out there. I mean, there's lots and lots and lots of research around leadership and what makes the best kind of leader. And I struggle with some of it. And this is why I come back to being really passionate about authenticity, because of all of the different leadership styles that there are, actually, depending on the situation that you're in, would depend on which style would be best to draw upon. And some research has confirmed that too. And so for me, actually coming back to you and who you are and bringing your own authenticity to your leadership, and then your skills, of course, for that people connection, that's what's going to drive you forwards. And so I hope that moving forwards, we can see more and more and more authenticity in the workplace. But of course, that takes a lot of work. And the back end of that, of course, is a lot of work around diversity, equity, and inclusion, because, you know, for women, but also for everybody, for leaders to be able to be authentic at work, we need our workplaces to have diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah, and not just see the same old faces at the top, not the same type of faces all the time, because then that's when the imposter syndrome definitely creeps in for a lot of people. Karina says soft skills are more important than ever.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100% agree.
Absolutely. And I have a question. How can people, do you think, be truly happy, and, you know, what leads to success?
Thank you. It's a really interesting question. And actually, a lot of the time I have, you know, working with women in leadership, actually, you know, if a woman has reached a leadership role, often they have, you know, they've got the career success, and often they have what other elements they want as well. You know, they've got the partner, the house, the family, the car. And actually, they're coming to me because that they're lacking confidence, perhaps at work, and things like that are the main area. But often there are other things as well within themselves that are missing, or they feel like lacking. And actually, that key piece, it is often the authentic piece, because they've been, you know, on a path to what other people what they thought they always wanted and that would make them happy. And so within that is the belief that success is what's going to bring happiness. But actually, there's a lot of research out there, and Sean Aker has written a book about it. I don't have the book to hand, but it's actually the other way around. It's happiness that leads to success. So first of all, if you want happiness, don't chase success. The next promotion is not necessarily going to give you happiness. If you want to be truly happy, then you need to look inwards first. You need to figure out who you are and what you want out of life, and what makes you
do that by yourself, or do you recommend, like you talk about you getting help, do you recommend getting that external support, insight? How do you know what is gonna, it's very hard to know, you know. So what's your definition of success? And you might think, well, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just trying to get through today and get the kids into bed on time. It's really hard. It's a big question, isn't it?
It is. And obviously I'm completely biased and I'm selling my own services. But I do think it's to spend time, dedicated time with somebody. So I obviously would recommend coming to myself, but there are loads of coaches out there. I mean, I'm doing therapy because that comes in with, you know, my children are adopted, and there's a, you know, their background. So it kind of, that's the thing that has instigated therapy for me. So that's a different thing. Though I do kind of, think everyone needs therapy as well as everyone needs a coach, let's have it all. But I'm in a privileged position to be able to have therapy and coaching. Having said that, it's not often recommended that you have therapy and coaching at the same time. Okay. I know that I'm doing mine in two very different areas, and so I can separate it very easily, but it's not usually recommended. So a therapist especially will usually say to not have coaching whilst you're going through a therapy journey.
Why? Because they'll be giving conflicting pieces of advice.
Not conflicting advice, because actually coaching especially, and maybe therapists don't really give advice either. So it's more about what is going on for you. So you don't have a coaching session and then you're done, and then you go back the next week and you go in and kind of have a coaching session and you're done again. In between the coaching sessions, the coaching conversation hopefully will have gone deep within you in terms of what you think and believe, which should mean that actually we're planting seeds in that session. So between the session, you're going to have thoughts about it. You're going to be thinking about it. You're going to, you might dream about it, you might not, but things are going to come up that you're going to think about, and you'll bring it back to the next coaching session. So if you think that you then have therapy sessions in between, then it can become quite confusing to be focusing on similar, perhaps, things, one in a coaching context and one in a therapy context at the same time. So that's basically what it's at in terms of, whilst you're going through coaching or therapy, you are also going through it in between the sessions. It's not just the hour that you spend with the person. So yeah, it felt important to say that. But yes, if you want to look inside, you often, when we think about this, so this is a thing, like you were saying, you don't know about success, someone might not know. And I think often it's almost habitual or automatic, the thoughts that we would have. So you might decide to sit down one day and say, right, I'm going to give myself half an hour to think about what it is that I want. But actually your thoughts are going to just automatically go to things that you've already thought about before, potentially. And so you might not actually get the depth because you don't know the questions to ask yourself. You just kind of stick with what you already know. Whereas what coaching will do, or a good coach will do, would be to ask you the questions that allow you to go deeper, to build or to draw out the deeper knowledge that you do have. Because this is the thing with coaching, I always say this, but actually it's not about me telling you. I don't know what's going to make you happy. I don't know what you want, but I do know how to ask you the questions for you to find the answers to what will make you happy and what you want. And so actually it's a two-way thing of you trusting me to ask the right questions and then you digging deep to find the answers. And you do have the answers within, but I think you need a dedicated space, and I think you need somebody there that's able to truly listen to you and is able to ask you the questions that push you deeper.
Karina says it's so true. She finds helping others and how she can help her customers and staff gives her so much happiness, and then she seems to get the sales. So it's full circle. So she completely agrees with all of that. I think that's true. Thank you.
Amazing.
Brilliant. Oh, well, on that note then, if someone's watching this and they think, oh, I love what you say, where can people find you, connect with you, learn more about you and the type of work you do?
Amazing. Thank you. So my website is www.jensmollett.com. My email address is jen@jensmollett.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn more than anywhere else. So please do link in with me on LinkedIn. Again, you can just search my name and I should come up on there. And yeah, feel free to, there's a link on my website where you can book a call if you want to talk about coaching with me. Then you can. That's an absolutely no pressure call whatsoever. It's just like, are we a right fit? Can I help you? And if I can't, I'll tell you. And if I can, I'll tell you how. And there's absolutely no pressure there. So yeah, feel free to connect with me.
And I also, we've also done a podcast, haven't we, previously as well? Work It Like a Mum, if you want to check that. And that was a brilliant episode. I was listening to it and laughing my head off, so very funny. You can search back for that episode as well. Thank you so much, Jen, for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for everyone that's watched and contributed questions.